Some places feel normal until you realize they're paying attention to you. Tonight's stories begin in familiar spaces, where nothing seems wrong until it's already too late. Listen carefully, because what happens next could happen anywhere. My name is Sadiq Bella, and before that night, nothing about me felt unusual enough to deserve a story. I was 30, recently unemployed, and running on the kind of quiet disappointment that doesn't announce itself. The tech startup I helped launch folded after a single investor pulled out. When the office closed, so did most of my relationships. People stop calling when you no longer represent momentum. I left Lagos without a plan, driving east with whatever fuel I could afford, telling myself distance might loosen the pressure in my chest. It didn't. It only gave the silence more room. I slept in the car, ate when I remembered to, and avoided places that felt like mirrors. By the third night, exhaustion made every decision feel optional. That was how I ended up stopping in Nanyuki, long after midnight. The place looked ordinary enough to trust, one mine wrote. A fuel station that had already closed, and a small convenience store sitting alone under fluorescent light, its windows glowing too brightly against the dark. The sign above the door read Daily Save, though the letters were faded and uneven, like they had been replaced one at a time. Inside, the air smelled sharp, almost sterile. The shelves were fully stocked, but something about them felt rehearsed. Every item faced forward. Nothing was misplaced. There was no music, no chatter, no background noise beyond the electric hum of the lights. It felt less like a shop and more like a display pretending to be one. A man stood behind the counter, his name tag read, Emeka. He didn't look up when I entered. He didn't say hello. He just stood there, hands resting flat, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the door. I walked the aisles slowly, more to justify being there than to buy anything. A bottle of water, crackers, phone credit I didn't need. The longer I stayed, the more aware I became of how quiet my thoughts were getting, like the room was absorbing them. When I finally approached the counter, Emeka scanned my items without speaking. The register beeped too loudly in the silence. He handed me the receipt and paused, his fingers hovering as if he wanted to say something but had forgotten the words. "You should leave before it gets late," he said. I checked my watch. It was already past 1 in the morning. I smiled politely, because that's what people do when a stranger says something unsettling in a calm voice. Outside, the night felt heavier. My car was the only one in the lot. As I reached for the door handle, I realized my phone wasn't in my pocket. I could see it on the counter through the glass, lying beside the register. When I turned back, the lights inside the store went out. Not flickered, not dimmed. Gone. I tried the door. It didn't open. I pressed my face closer to the glass, straining to see inside, but the reflections swallowed everything. That was when I noticed something else. My reflection wasn't alone. Behind it, deeper in the dark, was a taller shape that didn't move when I did. From inside the shop came a sound. Soft, measured, tap tap, pause. Tap. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't loud. It sounded patient. I stepped away from the door. The sound continued, slow and deliberate, like someone counting time. I backed toward my car, every instinct telling me not to turn my back on the building. When I looked again, the lights were on. Bright, normal, the shelves visible, Emeka gone. I got into the car and drove. I didn't stop until the engine began to stutter on a stretch of road with no streetlights and no buildings. The dashboard lights died. The engine cut, the silence returned, thicker than before. I sat there, hands on the wheel, listening to my own breathing. That was when headlights appeared in the distance, cresting the road slowly, deliberately. Relief hit me first, then confusion. They weren't getting closer. They stayed where they were, hovering at the edge of visibility, as if waiting for permission, and then they vanished. The car started again without explanation. I didn't question it. I drove until dawn, stopping only when my body forced me to. At a roadside diner, the woman behind the counter noticed my shaking hands and asked where I was coming from. When I mentioned Daily Save in Nanyuki, her expression changed. "That place burned down years ago," she said. "Killed 2 people. Nobody rebuilt it." I finished my coffee without tasting it. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I left before she could ask more. I still have the receipt. It has my name printed at the top, even though I never gave it. Sometimes, late at night, I hear that tapping again, not in the room, but in my head, slow, patient, like something that knows I noticed it first. My name is Aoaganla, and I didn't believe stories like this until I became one. I took the night job because it was quiet. That was the selling point. I had just come out of a long stretch of bad decisions that looked small individually, but devastating in total. A failed diploma. Debt that felt louder than my thoughts. A phone that rang only when payments were overdue. When the convenience store on the outskirts of Illarine offered overnight shifts, I said yes, before they finished explaining the hours. The store was called 24 Hours. Fluorescent lights, a security camera that blinked red like it was trying to stay awake. I told myself it was temporary. Most lives start that way. The first few nights passed without incident. Trucks stopped by. Drunk customers lingered too long. The boredom became predictable, almost comforting. I learned the rhythm of the shelves, the hum of the refrigerators, the way time stretched when nothing happened. Then the receipts started changing. It was subtle at first. A line too long, a price misaligned. I blamed the printer. Machines break. That's what machines do. But one night, after a man bought cigarettes and left without a word, I tore off the receipt and froze. Printed beneath the total was a sentence. Still awake, I.O. My name. I checked the register history. No notes. No input fields that could generate text. I reprinted the receipt. The line was gone. I told myself stress was rewriting reality. That happens when you don't sleep enough. But it kept happening. Not every transaction, just enough to make me doubt myself. Lock the back door. You missed something, room 6 remembers. I didn't know what room 6 was. The words meant nothing to me, which made them worse. If they had been threats, I could have dismissed them. Instead, they felt like references to a conversation I had never joined. I stopped throwing the receipts away. I folded them and kept them in my pocket, proof that I wasn't imagining things. At home, I spread them on the table, lining them up like evidence. The sentences didn't form a pattern, but they felt aware, like someone was testing how much I would tolerate. Across the road from the store was a roadside motel. 6 rooms, flickering sign. I had never paid attention to it before. Now, I couldn't stop noticing the way the light above room 6 stayed on even during the day. One night, the inventory system glitched. Items vanished from the screen while still sitting on the shelf. Others appeared with quantities I hadn't scanned. I ran reports, restarted the system. Nothing fixed it. When I checked the log, I saw entries recorded during hours I wasn't working. Someone else was using my login. I asked the manager the next morning. He laughed it off, said the system was old. Said maybe I forgot logging out. His answer slid past the fear instead of addressing it, which told me he didn't want to know. That night, the store was empty. Too empty. No trucks. No wanderers. Just me and the hum. At exactly to 17 a.m., the receipt printer activated by itself. The paper slid out slowly, deliberately, like it wanted to be read. Room 6 is waiting. I didn't move. I listened to my heartbeat until it felt like it belonged to someone else. The camera light blinked. Once, twice, then stayed solid. I locked up early and crossed the road without thinking. The motel smelled damp and old, like fabric that never fully dries. The man at the desk didn't ask for my name. He handed me a key without looking up. Room 6 was warm, even with the fan off. The bed was made. On the bedside table lay a stack of receipts. Mine, dates, times, notes I recognized. Notes I didn't remember writing. I didn't sleep. I left before sunrise and didn't return to the store. I quit without explanation. I moved to another city. Another job. Another attempt at forgetting. But sometimes, when I buy something late at night, I check the receipt before folding it away. Because once, just once, printed beneath the total, were the words, "You stayed longer than most." I didn't know whether opening that door would make me cruel or get me killed, and that hesitation still lives in my chest. People talk about instincts like they were loud alarms, but most of the time they're just quiet objections you learn to ignore. That night, I ignored mine because I didn't want to be the kind of person who said no. I was 26 and working nights, because days cost more than I could afford. After my hours got cut at the warehouse in Baton Rouge, the Family Dollar on Perkins Road was the only place that would take me without questions. No resume, no background check, beyond a glance at my ID. Just a manager named Clarence, who said, "Can you lock up by yourself?" and handed me a shirt 2 sizes too big. Closing shift started slow and ended slower. By 10, the aisles emptied out, and the store settled into that hollow hum only fluorescent lights can make. You notice things at night you don't during the day. Reflections in freezer doors. Shadows that don't quite line up. The way silence feels thicker when you're alone. That Thursday had already gone wrong before anyone walked in. The register froze twice. The back camera blinked out for a few seconds and came back grainy. Clarence would have told me not to worry about it. Old system, he always said. Corporate doesn't fix what hasn't burned down yet. At 10:37 p.m., the front chime rang. A man stepped inside wearing a gray hoodie, hood up, hands buried in the pouch. He looked normal enough, mid-30s. Average build, but his eyes didn't do what people's eyes usually do. They didn't wander. They tracked. He didn't greet me. Didn't browse right away. Just stood there like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. "You open?" he asked, finally. "For another 20 minutes, I said. He nodded. Walked toward aisle 4. Slow and deliberate. I watched him on the convex mirror as he picked up a flashlight. Turned it over, then set it back down. No basket, no rush. That's when the back door alarm chirped once. Not the full alarm. Just a chirp, like someone testing it. My stomach tightened. I checked the monitor behind the counter. The feed lagged. 10, couched up. The loading area was empty. Dumpster lid rattling in the breeze. When I looked back up, the man in the hoodie was smiling at me. "Everything okay?" asked it. "Yeah," I said, though my voice didn't believe it. He came to the counter with a roll of duct tape and a pack of batteries. Paid in cash, exact change. As I handed him the receipt, he leaned in just a little. "You work here alone?" he asked. The question landed wrong. Too casual? Too practiced? "Most nights," I said, then immediately regretted it. He nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Stay safe," he said, and walked out. I locked the door behind him, even though we were still technically open. 10 minutes later, someone knocked. Not on the glass, on the metal frame. 3 knocks. Evenly spaced. I froze. Through the door, I saw a woman standing under the flickering lot light. Late 20s, maybe. Hair pulled back. She held a phone in one hand, keys in the other. Her face was blotchy from crying. "My car won't start," she called softly. "Can I just wait inside until my brother gets here?" Every rule Clarence ever gave me flashed through my head. Don't open after lock. Call the non-emergency line. Trust policy over sympathy. But then she wiped her face with her sleeve, and her voice cracked when she spoke again. "Please." I unlocked the door. She stepped inside quickly, like she'd been afraid I'd change my mind. She stayed close to the counter, arms wrapped around herself. "Thank you," she said. I'm Kelechi," I replied. She stood there, breathing shallow, eyes darting toward the aisles. "I don't like being out here at night," she said. "People think nothing happens in places like this." The back door chirped again, louder this time. Naomi flinched. "What was that?" "Probably the wind," I said, though I was already moving toward the security screen. The back camera was frozen. Static. 10 movimento shape crossing too close to the lens. My pulse hammered. I reached under the counter for the panic button. Nothing happened. Behind me, Naomi spoke. Her voice suddenly calm. "He's getting impatient. But he made a turn." She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking past me, toward the aisle. The front chime rang. The man in the hoodie walked back in, smiling wider now. "We tried the back," he said casually. "Locked." I backed away from the counter, heart in my throat. "You need to leave." Naomi stepped closer to him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "You didn't have to make it hard," she said, not to me, but to him. That's when it clicked. The timing, the questions, the test knock. I ran. I didn't think. I bolted for the employee hallway, slammed the door, threw the deadbolt, just as something hit it from the other side. Once, twice. "Wrong choice," the man called calmly. I locked myself in the bathroom and climbed onto the toilet, phone shaking in my hands as I dialed 911. By the time the police arrived, the store was empty. No woman, no man. The footage showed them arriving separately, leaving separately, never touching, never speaking on camera. The officer told me they'd been hitting stores up and down the interstate. One distracts, one gains access. Sometimes they waited until someone opened the door willingly. Sometimes they didn't. I quit the next day. I still think about Naomi, about how easy it was to believe her, about how kindness almost cost me everything. Because the scariest part wasn't that they tried to hurt me, it was how close I came to helping them do it. People assume you're safe if you're inside, wearing a uniform, following rules. They never ask who those rules actually protect. My name is Sanablowell, and for 3 years I worked the late shift at a 24-hour pharmacy just off Route 17. It wasn't a dangerous area, according to the company. That phrase came up a lot whenever we complained. Low incident reports, adequate lighting, police patrols nearby, all the right words that meant nothing at 2 in the morning. I took the job after my separation because nights were quieter, and quiet felt survivable then. My son stayed with my sister. I told myself the hours were temporary. Everything was temporary when you said it fast enough. The store was mostly empty after midnight. Aisles wide, shelves tall, the kind of space that made you feel exposed even when no one else was there. I stood behind the counter with a clear view of the entrance and the cosmetics aisle, which corporate insisted stay unlocked no matter how many theft reports we filed. The first man came in at 1:12 a.m. He asked for cigarettes, even though we hadn't sold them in years. His voice was polite, educated. He apologized when I told him no, smiled like it didn't matter. "What time do you close?" he asked. "Never," I said. He laughed. "That must be hard, being here all night." I didn't respond. He wandered for a while, picked up cold medicine, put it back, then left without buying anything. Nothing about him felt alarming enough to report. That's how these things start, just below the threshold of concern. The second man arrived 15 minutes later. Different build. Older, baseball cap pulled low. He stood in the greeting card aisle longer than necessary, flipping envelopes without reading them. When he came to the counter, he paid in coins. Took his receipt, didn't leave. Instead, he stood to the side, pretending to check his phone. "You always work alone?" he asked, not looking up. I didn't answer. At 1:47, the third one came in. This one didn't speak at all. He walked straight to the back, paused near the employee-only door, then returned to the front and stood by the refrigerated drinks. The three of them never acknowledged each other. If I hadn't been watching so closely, I might not have noticed the pattern at all. My chest felt tight. I texted the assistant manager. 3 men loitering. Fait il unsafe? No response. At 2:03 a.m., the first man came back. "I forgot something," he said pleasantly. That's when the second man blocked the automatic doors. Not aggressively, just standing close enough that the sensor didn't trigger. The third man smiled at me for the first time. "We don't want trouble," he said. "We just need help." I stepped back from the counter. "I'm calling the police." The first man tilted his head. For what? That question broke something in me. Because he was right. There was no crime yet. Whose presence? Just proximity. Whose pursuer? They started asking questions. About my hours. About whether the security guard ever showed up. About the camera angles. Each question felt rehearsed. I hit the silent alert under the register. Nothing happened. Later, I learned it had been disconnected for maintenance. No one told me. The men didn't rush. That was the worst part. They waited, letting the fear build, letting me imagine every possible outcome. Then a woman entered the store. Relief hit me so hard I nearly cried. She was young, maybe early 20s, wearing scrubs. She smiled at me sympathetically as she passed the men. "I hate working nights," she said. "You okay?" Before I could answer, the third man spoke. "She's fine," he said gently. "We're just friends, keeping her company." The woman hesitated, looked at me, looked at them. "You need help?" she asked. I opened my mouth. The first man shook his head slightly, almost imperceptibly. I said nothing. The woman nodded, uneasy, and went down the shampoo aisle. The men relaxed. That was when I understood. They counted on silence, on uncertainty, on the fact that women are trained not to escalate. They didn't touch me. Not then. They waited until 2:30, when the woman paid and left. Waited until the street outside went quiet again. Then the second man locked the door. I don't remember everything that happened next clearly. Trauma does that. I remember my own voice sounding far away. I remember begging without knowing what I was begging for. I remember one of them saying, "You should have closed earlier." The police arrived because a truck driver noticed the lights still on and got a bad feeling. That's what the report said. Bad feeling. The men were gone. They were never caught. Corporate sent flowers, gave me 3 weeks of paid leave. reinstalled the panic button, added a memo about situational awareness. When I asked why we were still required to work alone overnight, they said the same thing they always did. Statistically, incidents are rare. I don't work nights anymore. But every time I pass a store glowing alone in the dark, I think about how easy it is to trap someone without breaking a single rule, and how many people walk past, assuming safety is built into the walls. People like to say you can tell when someone is dangerous, that they give off a feeling, or say the wrong thing too quickly, or stand too close. What they don't tell you is that the most dangerous people usually feel comforting first. My name is Inkiru, and the man who followed me never did anything that could be reported on its own. I met him at the grocery store 3 blocks from my apartment. I'd started going there late, after my shift at the call center ended at 11. Fewer people, shorter lines, less noise. It felt easier on my nerves. He worked the register closest to the exit. His name tag said Daniel, but he pronounced it softly, like he didn't want it to take up too much space. Long night, he asked the first time he rang me up. Always, I said. He smiled like he understood, not like he was pretending to. After that, he always seemed to be there when I came in. Not in an obvious way, just often enough that I noticed. He remembered my usual items. Rice, frozen vegetables, tea. He never commented on anything personal, never crossed that line. That was why I didn't feel threatened. At first, the store was quiet at night. Too quiet sometimes. The music overhead played softly, the same playlist looping every hour. Daniel never rushed me, never watched me too closely. He spoke when spoken to, and when he did, his voice was calm. "You worked late," he said one night. "So, do you?" "Yeah," he replied. "Guess we're the kind of people who keep things running when everyone else is asleep." There was something comforting about that, like we were on the same side of something. The first strange thing happened with the receipt. I got home, unpacked my groceries, and found it folded neatly on top of the receipt pile I kept in a drawer. I hadn't put it there. I was sure of that. I'd left it in my coat pocket. At the bottom, under the total, someone had written in pen, "You forgot your umbrella." I checked the closet. My umbrella was gone. I told myself it was coincidence, that I must have left it somewhere else. That stress makes you forget things. That night, shifts blurred together. The next time I went to the store, Daniel smiled the same way he always did. "Did you find it?" he asked casually. "Find what? Your umbrella?" My chest tightened. "I don't remember mentioning that." "Ishruget, you didn't..." "I just noticed you didn't have it when you left." That explanation didn't sit right, but it wasn't enough to accuse him of anything. I paid and left quickly. The tapping started a week later. 3 soft taps on my apartment door. At exactly 12:12 a.m. I didn't answer. I checked the peephole. The hallway was empty. The taps came again the next night. Same time, same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. I stopped sleeping properly. I started checking the locks twice. I told myself it was someone else in the building. Pipes, heat, anything but what my mind was suggesting. Then I found another receipt. This one was tucked into my book. "You should sleep more," it said. I stopped going to the store. I switched locations. Walked farther. Changed my routine. The tapping didn't stop. One night, my phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. "You forgot your tea." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. The next evening, as I hurried past the grocery store without going in, I heard his voice behind me. "Nkiru," I froze. "I was worried," Daniel said gently. "You disappeared." "How do you know my name?" I asked. He looked surprised. "It's on your card." I ran home. The tapping that night was louder. Insistent. I didn't call the police. I didn't know what to say. No threats. No proof. Just kindness stretched too far, twisted into something sharp. The final receipt appeared on my kitchen counter. "You don't have to be afraid," it read. "I just want to help." I moved out the next morning. Sometimes I still hear tapping in new places. Different doors, same rhythm, and every time someone remembers something about me I didn't tell them, my stomach drops. Because now I know how easy it is for care to become control. There's a point where survival stops feeling like a victory and starts feeling like a compromise. My name is Bamidelo Konkwo, and when I accepted help from a stranger, I thought I was choosing mercy over pride. I was sleeping in my car when the weather turned. The heat broke, rain settling in 4 days at a time, turning parking lots into shallow lakes. I parked near a church because the lights stayed on all night and it felt safer than the highway rest stop. I'd lost my job 3 months earlier, lost my apartment a month after that. Friends said they'd help until they stopped answering. I learned quickly that desperation makes people uncomfortable. The man approached me one evening as I sat in the driver's seat, counting the change in my cup holder. "You shouldn't stay out here," he said. His name was Mr. Wade. He wore clean clothes, smelled like soap, spoke slowly, like he had time. "I run a small property," he said. "Nothing fancy, but it's dry." I hesitated. Every warning story I'd ever heard rose up in my head. "What's the catch?" I asked. He smiled. "No catch. Just don't waste the chance." I followed him because rain makes you brave in stupid ways. The room was small. Clean, bed, desk, bathroom, down the hall. He didn't ask for money, just said I could stay until I got back on my feet. At first, it felt like relief. I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. I ate real food. I showered. Then the rules started. Lights out at 10. No guests. Doors locked at all times. "Just for safety," he said. He asked questions about where I went during the day, who I spoke to, why I came back late. "It's concern," he insisted. "People disappear out there." I told myself he was right. The tapping started on my door at night. Soft, patient. Tap, tap, tap. When I asked about it, he looked confused. "Old building," he said. "Pipes." One evening, I tried to leave without telling him. He was waiting by the door. "You're not ready," he said calmly. Something in his voice made my legs weak. I stayed, days blurred together. He started calling me son, correcting how I spoke, what I wore, what I ate. "You owe me," he said once. Not angrily, just factually. I realized then that help had turned into ownership. I left in the middle of the night, heart pounding, rain soaking through my clothes. Behind me, I heard tapping, not on a door on the car window. I didn't look back. I don't accept help from strangers anymore, because sometimes mercy is just a leash you don't notice until it tightens. There's a specific kind of fear that doesn't spike your heart rate. It settles instead. Quietum persistent, like a thought you can't finish without feeling wrong. My name is Tandafalayan, and the first time I realized something knew me, it didn't feel supernatural. It felt administrative. I was working nights at a small roadside motel just outside Ibadan. 12 rooms, one vending machine, one flickering sign that buzzed louder when it rained. I took the job because no one asked questions, and because night work lets you exist without being seen. Most guests paid cash. That mattered to me at the time. I'd made enough mistakes that anonymity felt safer than forgiveness. The first receipt printed wrong on my third shift. Room 6. One night. Cash. At Tibatam beneath the total. The printer added a line that wasn't part of the template. "Welcome back." I stared at it longer than I should have. I checked the system logs. No previous stays under my name. No employee errors. Just a glitch, Primera told myself. Machines do that. The guest in room 6 never came to the desk, never requested towels, never turned on the television, but the occupancy sensor showed movement all night. At 3:06 a.m., the printer whirred again. Another receipt? Still awake? I unplugged the printer. The next morning, my manager laughed when I told him. "Old system," he said. "It prints junk when it overheats." He didn't explain how it knew the room number. The second night, the printer stayed silent. I relaxed, started scrolling on my phone. Let myself believe it had been nothing. At 2:47 a.m., the vending machine dispensed a bottle of water. No one was there. I checked the camera. Static on the hallway feed. Every other camera worked fine. I picked up the bottle. Cold, condensation still forming. A label was taped to it. Hydration helps you think clearly. I locked the office door. The tapping began just after 3. Not loud, not urgent. Tap, tap, tap. From room 6, I didn't respond. I sat frozen, staring at the hallway monitor. The sensor outside room 6 flickered green. Red, green. The tap-in stopped. At the end of my shift, I found another receipt waiting on the desk. "You forgot how long you've been here." That one bothered me enough that I called in sick the next night. When I returned, room 6 was vacant. No booking, no record of anyone staying there the previous week. But the bed was warm. I tried to quit. My manager said he'd need 2 weeks' notice. Corporate policy, he smiled like it was out of his hands. That night, the printer printed without being plugged in. You can't leave things unfinished. I stopped sleeping. I started checking my phone for messages I didn't remember writing. Notes in my app with timestamps from hours I'd been alone. Questions I didn't recognize. Why do you keep running? What are you afraid of? Remembering. The motel began to feel smaller. The hallway longer. Room numbers harder to read. Room 6 was always there. One morning, I woke up in the office chair. Neck stiff, lights still on. The hallway monitor showed room 6's door open. Inside, the room was empty, except for a single object on the bed. My wallet, everything was inside. Cash ID. Even the old photo I kept folded behind my license. The receipt printer hummed softly behind me. You left this the last time. I didn't remember the last time. That was when I noticed the guest log. Names crossed out, dates smudged, my name repeated on the last 6 lines. Same room, room 6. I ran. I didn't clock out, didn't grab my jacket. I drove until sunrise, pulled into a rest stop, and sat shaking until the world felt real again. Weeks passed. I started another job. Different city, different hours. I thought I was safe until the first receipt appeared in my pocket. Not from a store I recognized, just a thin strip of paper. Room numbers change. People don't. Sometimes I wake up convinced I'm still there, that I never left, that the version of me driving, working, pretending is the anomaly. Because once something organizes you, catalogs you, tracks you quietly, it doesn't forget. And every time I pass a motel sign buzzing in the dark, I wonder if room 6 is still waiting. Orif, E-I-E-M. People think fear always announces itself. They expect shouting, running, violence. What they don't expect is planning. My name is Ibrahim Sadi, and the night I realized I was being hunted, nothing supernatural was happening at all. I was driving deliveries for a small logistics app that paid by the drop, not by the hour. The kind of job that keeps you moving long enough to forget how tired you are. I worked nights because traffic was lighter, and because insomnia had already ruined any normal schedule I tried to keep. That night started like every other. My phone buzzed with a pickup request just after midnight. Convenience store, edge of town. Nothing unusual. The clerk barely looked at me when I grabbed the package. He slid it across the counter and said, "Careful out there." I assumed it was just something people said at night. The delivery address was a row of short-term rentals near the industrial park. Most of them were dark. A few porch lights on. Quiet enough that my footsteps sounded too loud when I stepped out of the car. As I placed the package by the door, a man across the street raised his hand. "You? With the app?" he asked. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "Good," he replied. "They always mess up my address." I nodded, took a photo for proof, and walked back to my car. My phone buzzed immediately. Customer claims delivery not received. I frowned and checked the photo. It was clear. Door number visible. Package centered. I appealed the claim and waited. Another message came through. New pickup available. Same store. Same clerk. When I walked back in, he frowned. "Didn't you just leave?" "They said it wasn't delivered," he sighed. "Happens a lot around here." As I left the store again, I noticed a sedan parked across the lot with its engine running. 2 silhouettes inside. The driver wasn't on his phone. He was watching the door. I told myself I was tired. That night work messes with your perception. The second delivery took me back to the same block. Different house, this time. As I slowed down, the sedan followed. Not aggressively, just enough to stay close. I parked. They parked farther down the street. A woman stepped out of one of the houses, waving frantically. "Hey," she called. "Over here." She pointed to the wrong door number. "I think this is it," I said, showing her the address on my phone. She leaned closer than necessary. "They always do this," she said. "Can you just bring it inside?" "My dad can't walk well." I hesitated. Company policy was clear. No entering homes, no exceptions. "I can't," I said. Her expression shifted. "Who slightly? That's inconvenient," she replied. I turned back toward my car. The sedan's headlights turned on. Not full beams, just perking lights. Enough to let me know they were there. My phone buzzed again. "Customer requesting assistance, please complete." That was new. I drove off instead. The appeal was denied 10 minutes later. Payment docked. Account flagged. I pulled into a gas station to calm down. Hands shaking. As I stood by the pump, the sedan rolled in behind me. The driver stepped out. told outcome, smiling like we were meeting by chance. "You forgot something?" he said. "I don't think so." He held up his phone. On the screen was my driver profile. My name, my photo, my rating. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. The woman stepped out of the passenger seat. "We just want the package," she added. "And maybe your phone." My heart pounded, but my mind felt strangely clear. "No," I said. The man sighed, disappointed. "That's unfortunate." Another car pulled into the station. An older couple. The sedan backed off immediately. "Next time," the woman said softly. I drove until dawn. The next day, I searched online forums. Delivery drivers. Night shifts. Same complaints. False climbs, repeated addresses. Coordinated distractions. People disappearing from the app. Accounts deactivated. Phones found later. Empty cars. No monsters. No ghosts. Just systems that made it easy. I quit that job, but sometimes, when my phone buzzes late at night with a notification that isn't there, I feel my stomach drop. Because now I know how simple it is to hunt someone who has to keep moving, and how quiet the world stays when it happens. People tell you to trust your instincts, but they never explain how to use them when every option feels dangerous. When leaving is risky and staying is worse, fear stops being a warning and becomes a constant condition. My name is Amina Yusuf, and for almost a year, the night shift was the only way I could keep my life from falling apart. I worked as a cleaner in a private office building downtown. The pay was low, but it was steady, and the hours worked around my daughter's school schedule. By the time I arrived each night, the offices were empty, the city quieter, like it had exhaled and forgotten the people still awake. The building management liked to say security was remote monitored. That meant cameras, not people. A number you could call that rang long enough to make you wonder if anyone was listening. Most nights, nothing happened. I vacuumed carpets, wiped desks, emptied trash. Familiar work, predictable movements. It helped me feel in control. The first man appeared during my 3rd month. He was standing near the elevators when I came out of the stairwell, wearing a maintenance vest, similar to mine. I nodded politely. I nodded back, no conversation. Nothing strange. The second time, he spoke. "You work late," he said. "So do you," I replied. He smiled. "Someone has to." After that, I saw him often, always in different parts of the building. Sometimes with tools, sometimes without. He never crossed any clear line. That was the problem. Then there was the other one. He didn't wear a vest. He wore a suit rumpled, like he'd slept in it. He came in through the front door just before midnight and rode the elevators slowly, stopping on random floors. When SOME, he always apologized. "Didn't mean to scare you," he'd say. "I told my supervisor." She asked if they'd touched me. Threatened me blocked my way. When I said no, she sighed. "Then there's not much we can do." The building started to feel different, quieter than it should have been. Footsteps echoing when no one was there. Elevator doors opening on empty floors. One night, I found my cart moved. I was sure I'd left it by the conference room. When I came back, it was by the restrooms, supplies rearranged neatly. A note sat on top of the wipes. "You missed a spot." I laughed nervously and threw it away. The next night, the note was back. Same handwriting. 3rd floor corner office. My chest tightened. I checked the cameras at the security desk. The footage lagged, skipped, resumed. "Too much data," the system said. The men started coordinating. I didn't see them together. I felt them, instead. One would appear just long enough to draw my attention. A voice behind me. A question. Then the other would be somewhere else, closer than before. They learned my schedule, my breaks, which stairwell I used. One night, the suited man stood too close as I mopped the lobby. "You shouldn't be alone like this," he said softly. "I'm working," I replied. "Still," he said, "people take advantage." I wanted to scream at the irony. Instead, I kept my head down. When I tried switching floors with another cleaner, management said no. "You know this building?" they said. "That's safer." The maintenance man started calling me by name. I never told him. "How's your daughter?" he asked. One night, my hands shook so badly I had to sit down. I stopped taking breaks. I worked faster. I stayed visible, close to the front desk lights. The final night, the elevators stopped working. All of them. An email from management said it was temporary. Use the stairs. On the 4th floor landing, The lights flickered. The suited man stood at the bottom of the stairs. The maintenance man, at the top. Neither blocked me. They didn't have to. "You look tired," one of them said. "We're worried about you," said the other. I called the security number. No answer. I called my supervisor. Voicemail. I ran. I didn't clean that night. I didn't clock out. I left my cart where it was and ran into the street. Heart pounding, breath burning. The police took a report, asked questions. No evidence, no footage, no names. Management said they couldn't confirm unauthorized personnel. I quit the next day. I still clean houses now, daytime only. People around, doors open. But sometimes, when I hear footsteps behind me, my body reacts before my mind does. Because fear doesn't always come from being chased. Sometimes it comes from being surrounded by people who know you're alone and know exactly how to stay just within the rules. There are moments when safety feels like something you're allowed to borrow, not own. When relief doesn't arrive as peace, but as permission. My name is Salihu Musa, and the night I accepted help was the night I realized how easily fear can disguise itself as kindness. I had been sleeping wherever exhaustion caught me. Bus stations, library corners, a church stairwell once, until someone complained. I told myself it was temporary. Everything sounds survivable when you don't attach dates to it. People looked through me most days. Not rudely, practiced. As if acknowledging me would make my situation contagious. I learned to keep my head down, to take up less space, to say thank you even when nothing was offered. The man noticed me because he didn't look away. "He shouldn't be out here," he said gently, holding the door of the cafe open as rain pressed down behind him. I hesitated. Warmth drifted out. Light. The smell of coffee. "I'm fine," I replied automatically. He studied me for a moment. Not like he was measuring my worth, like he was deciding something. "My name is Kareem," he said. "You can sit inside if you want. No one will bother you." I waited for conditions. Nonni? Game. Inside, he bought me tea. Didn't ask questions. Didn't offer advice. Just talked about ordinary things. Weather, football, how quiet the city gets when everyone thinks they're alone. When I stood to leave, he frowned. "Where will you go?" I shrugged. "I have a room," he said. "It's small, but it locks." That word mattered more than it should have. I followed him. The room was clean. Too clean. Bed made. Desk empty. No personal items, it felt on, I said. Like it had been waiting. "You can stay," he said. "Just until you're steady." I slept for 12 hours. The first few days were calm. Food appeared without explanation. Rules were light. Be quiet after 10. Lock the door when you leave. Don't invite anyone over. "I value privacy," Kareem explained. "So Then I noticed the journal on the desk. It wasn't new, pages worn, filled with handwriting that wasn't mine. Names, dates, notes about habits, preferences, weaknesses. Sleeps lightly. Avoids confrontation. Grateful for structure. My chest tightened. When I asked Kareem about it, he smiled apologetically. "Old tenant," he said. "I forget to throw things away." I wanted to believe him. The tapping started on the third night. Soft, polite, tap tap tap. On my door. "What is it?" I asked. "Just checking," he replied. "You didn't eat much today." I thanked him. The tapping continued each night. Same rhythm, same time. I stopped locking the door. One evening, I tried to leave without telling him. I needed air, distance, something unsupervised. He was sitting in the hallway. "Running doesn't fix things," he said calmly. "I'm just going for a walk." "You don't need to," he replied. "Everything you need is here." I sat back down. Days blurred. Meals became scheduled. Conversations predictable. He corrected my posture, my tone, the way I spoke about myself. "You sell yourself short," he said. "I'm fixing that." I noticed the journal again. New entries. My name at the top of a page. Responds well to reassurance. Fears abandonment more than confinement. I realized then that I wasn't staying because I was trapped. I was staying because leaving felt like ingratitude. That was the cleverest part. The night I finally left, the tapping didn't stop when I ignored it. It grew louder. Insistent. Tap. 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 "You'll come back," Kareem said through the door. Not angry, certain. I walked into the rain without a plan. I slept on a bench. shivered until morning. Weeks passed. Sometimes I miss the room. The structure, the certainty of being watched. That scares me more than anything, because now, whenever someone offers help without asking for anything in return, my chest tightens. Not because I expect harm, but because I've learned how easily mercy can feel like safety, and how hard it is to tell the difference. So I'll leave you with a question that still keeps me awake. How do you know it's mercy and not a leash? Night shifts have a way of stripping life down to its quietest edges. When the street's emptied and the lights hum instead of shine, people working through the dark are left alone with their thoughts, routines, and the spaces they assume are safe. This compilation explores those hours when exhaustion dulls, instinct and familiarity becomes a trap. Each story comes from ordinary jobs, familiar buildings, and moments so small they feel harmless at first. There are no monsters waiting in the corners, no warnings shouted in advance. What waits instead is recognition. The unsettling feeling that someone understands your patterns, your habits, and your need to keep going. These stories follow people who stayed late because they had to, trusted help because it was offered, and ignored unease because survival demanded it. Fear grows slowly here, fed by silence, routine, and the belief that nothing bad has happened yet. By the time danger becomes clear, it is already woven into kindness, policy, and everyday necessity. Listen closely, not for screams, but for the moments when relief arrives too easily here, when the night offers comfort to those worn down by long hours and empty streets. How do you know it's protection and not another way to keep you from ever leaving?